Hello, everyone. Chris Connolly here, my esteemed colleague Lainey Mays. I know we promised that all three of us would be back after our little hiatus. Virginia cannot be with us today, but rest assured we will be full strength soon enough next week. We've missed you all. I hope you all are doing well, enjoying the turning of the seasons, the warmth, the promise of new books and new experiences. We're going to be talking about some new reading faves that Lainey and I have discovered over the past month or so. And then we're going to dive into Day of Dialogue, which is the lineup is completely packed with incredible authors, ours and others. So we'll walk you through what to expect. That's May 6th. But just to start things off, again, we're going to talk books. And I'm just going to take a look here, see who's joined us. We're kind of looking at the Facebook and doing our presentation. So I just want to make sure we don't miss. We have Casey Davis, Renee Wallace, Elizabeth Silver, Sylvia, Vicky, Nicole. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
Okay. They said, hope we had a nice spring break, and we did. We had our close for business for a week, but thank you. That was very nice. And we did.
Yeah, it's been, I don't know how many of these episodes we've done over the course of the last year, and so many of you have been with us every step of the way. So yeah, it was a little weird not having one for a week, but again, we appreciate you all giving us our time to rest and recoup and come back at you with new energy, new vigor, and new books. And some of these I've actually talked about, but I just think they're so good. And some of them we have podcast episodes out for, so I just want to make sure we do take the time to call them out. So the first book I want to call out today is Appleseed by Matt Bell. So you're going to hear it here first, folks. I have a podcast interview that we're going to be posting today that I sat down and spoke with Matt. I love this book. It's so ambitious and it's timely at the same point. This is a work of speculative fiction by Matt that takes place over the course of over 1,000 years. And just for some background on Matt, he's the author of Scrapper and In the House Upon the Dirt Between the Lake and the Woods, as well as a short story collection, A Tree or a Person or a Wall. He also wrote a book about the classic video game Baldur's Gate 2. He's a gamer. We talk about that on the podcast a little bit. Casey David just says, FYI, Alyssa Cole just won an Edgar Award. Thank you for noting that, Casey Davis. But yeah, so Appleseed, if any of you like Jeff Vandermeer or Neil Stevenson, anything along that genre, this is for you. This follows, it kind of deals with like manifest destiny and myth and again, environmentalism. And it's three main storylines where you start in 18th century Ohio, and you have these two brothers who are kind of the equivalent of a Johnny Appleseed. They're venturing out of Ohio and they're trying to plant apple seeds to kind of stake a claim on this land that will soon be, inundated with settlers. And they want to kind of be the first people there, plant their seeds and kind of bring humanity to the land. That kind of at this point feels old-fashioned, but taming the land, that old-fashioned relationship with nature, and that's what they're all about. One of these brothers is actually part fawn, so there's this kind of fantastical element to it, and he's closer to the land. He can't really step on land that's actually been developed. He has this like weird relationship where he's drawn to the land, but he's also drawn to his brother, who's the only person who's ever cared for him. His brother's human, he's fawn. And they're just kind of like setting off on this journey, and things happen. They become separated. They question their motives. And then you jump forward to kind of like a near future timeline where you have these resistance fighters. The planet's, gone completely kaput. I mean, the environmental impacts from various things have basically destroyed all agriculture and civilization as we know it. And there's this one mega corporation that basically controls everything, and they're geoengineering the land. And you have this group of resistance fighters who feels like humanity's run its course. Whatever this corporation is doing to supposedly save humanity is doing more harm than it's worth. And so they're plotting to stop this corporation before they enact this big operation to essentially reverse global warming. So there's kind of like a heist element to it. And then you jump forward even further to like 1,000 years into the future, and you have this lone being. Earth's completely covered in ice, and he's basically just been living this solitary life of kind of living, looking for resources, regenerating himself every time he dies. There's like 100 iterations of him at least. But then a new iteration of this being is born, and he decides that I'm not going to do this continued kind of like self replication. I'm going to venture out into this cold and this vast and this unknown and search for this homing beacon that indicates that maybe there's someone else who's alive. I know that's a lot. I just covered a lot of this story there, but it's all written really beautifully. I think it's hard to do speculative fiction where you're explaining all these complex systems and structures, but still have like real beauty in the writing. And Matt really pulls that off. He's a really fascinating guy. Beautiful writing, really interesting mix of myth along with speculative fiction and like hard sci-fi. It just has it all if you're into this kind of book. And I know I am, deals with manifest destiny and all of those, pointed topics. And I love it. It's going on sale in July. Again, the podcast interview is going to be up today. There's a lot to chew on. I use that pun in the podcast too. I'm sorry again. But yeah, it's really good. So check
It's a
it
really
out.
great podcast. And you guys have to go listen to it, because even if you may have thought like this book is not for you, like you're going to want to read it after the podcast episode. It was really great.
Thank you, Lainey.
Yeah. And
I did not
also,
pay Lainey to say that.
I mean, no. But he also reads so much. I don't know, like the amount of books he just spouted out in this podcast of like what to read if you're looking for something like this. And so it's a great, like you said, a lot of readers advisory in that podcast. So go check it out. Okay. What do we want to talk about next? How about Count the Ways by Joyce Maynard? I don't know why it's so small. It's not a small book, but so best-selling author Joyce Maynard. So she has previously authored 16 books, including the novel To Die For, which was adapted into the 95 film of the same name, but it had Nicole Kidman and Matt Dillon and Joaquin Phoenix. And so this is her new novel, and it really dives into marriage and family, especially when it comes to divorce and parenthood. And so we have a husband and wife, Eleanor and Cam, and they meet at this Vermont craft fair in the 70s. She's an artist and a writer, and he makes these wooden bowls. So they meet at this craft fair, and within 4 years, they're married, their parents of 3 children, and they kind of just seem like they have it all, especially Eleanor. She kind of feels like they have this farm in New Hampshire, and everything that she's ever wanted is kind of there. They have like a kind of the ideal family. They go to softball games, they have fires, and they make paper boats, and it's just like a really ideal looking from the outside. But then there's a terrible accident, and then Cam it's at his fault. So Eleanor finds it really hard to forgive him, and there's a lot of bitterness going on there. And so she decides to kind of step away from this, and try to find herself a little. And with that comes this new younger partner. And so then from then on, it's all these decades pass. So there's this fractured family, and they're making all these discoveries about what really happened in the past, and what tore them apart. And there's a lot of different things going on in the background. We have like all the things from history kind of peppered in. So the Me Too era is coming in, but also like the Challenger explosion and illegal abortion. And so all these things are within this grander story of what it means to be a family, and what can tear you apart. And so it's really, really beautiful. I have this great quote from Jenna Blum. Where'd it go? Jenna Blum, who wrote Those Who Save Us and the Lost Families. So it said, "The queen of the family saga and Count the Ways is the best. Instantly addicting, the story of Eleanor, Cam, and their children pulls you in and wraps itself around you like an heirloom quilt made of familiarity, intimacy, and the orchestral complexity of, wow, that's a big word, complexity of loving the people closest to us. This is the novel you'll be longing to return to at the end of the day, and one you'll reread for years to come. It's a really great quote. So that is Joyce Maynard, Count the Ways. And the e-galley's up, so you guys can go give it a read.
Yeah. I've heard it compared to Monogamy by Sue Miller, which I think is a great comparison. I know so many of you love that book. It was a library reads pick. So if you love that book, definitely check out Count the Ways. Next book I'm going to talk about, I've talked about this book before, but I can't talk about it enough. The Hidden Palace by Helene Wecker, which is the sequel to The Golem and the Genie. So many of you love. It was a New York Times bestseller. I just think maybe it's because New York, where Lainey and I are based, is starting to open up more and more, and I'm seeing just more people interact in that beautiful random way where in a city like New York allows. And these novels do so much, but they're also just great New York novels. They really bring it to life. They're historical fiction, of course. This is taking place in the years leading up to World War I, and it does follow a larger timeline than The Golem and the Genie, but still like the great characters you know and love, Hava and Ahmed. And this introduces new characters. It takes place, if you've read The Golem and the Genie, it picks up pretty much right off the end of that book, where you have Hava and Ahmad kind of just trying to navigate life in New York, like early 1900s New York, trying to find their way. Hava's working in a bakery. Ahmad is working with metals with his longtime partner. But newer characters are introduced that kind of throw the delicate balance they have into disarray. I mean, this is a novel that really seamlessly mixes various mythologies and religions, whether it's Yiddish or Middle Eastern myths and literature. And it does it in this really beautiful way. I think it really distills the immigrant experience. And I do love when fantasy novels or science fiction novels take like a kind of like a high concept setup, but really it's focused in on very real world issues, which this definitely is. I think it really shines a beautiful light on immigrant communities anywhere, particularly New York City, the Syrian community that used to be in the financial district, back where our offices used to be. Like, there's all these really beautiful, interesting touch points in the book that just bring it to life, and it's so warm, but epic at the same time. I mean, it takes you from New York to Syria and the Middle East. You are introduced to a Jinnia, a female Jinni, who kind of throws everything into disarray when she finally makes it to New York. You have a new golem that is created by this kind of desperate Yiddish father who's trying to protect his daughter. And this golem isn't like Hava in that he's not fully formed. And his passages are honestly some of the best I've ever read. I just think following him as he starts as this literal kind of ball of clay and doesn't know who he is and feels lost, and his only purpose is to protect this young woman he was created to protect. And seeing him develop as a character is just beautiful, at times sad. It's just such a rewarding book. I won't get too much into the story because there's just a lot to cover, and it's both, I don't know if it's more plot driven or character driven. Honestly, it does both so well. I love the book. I did sit down with Helene, who's amazing, so smart, and just took a lot of time to really delve into her process. I mean, she was writing this book for I think 9 years maybe, and the wait was well worth it. Just brilliant. So this is going on sale June 8th. So I think today or tomorrow might be the last day to vote for it for library reads. We have 2 more days to vote for it, so definitely do submit your votes if you haven't already. Oh, Kimberly McGee says it has a Middle Eastern Frankenstein quality to it. Yes, definitely. I think that's really, really well put. Yeah, so please do check it out. And I'll link to the podcast interview in the comments. So.
That description just gave me like chill bumps, Kim.
Oh.
That was like Middle Eastern Frankenstein. I like it.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah, Jennifer Winberry says, after Golem and the Genie, I would wander around the city looking for the characters and the places. Yeah, I wonder if there are book tours. I mean, when that's a thing again, I'd love to do a walking tour for this book. Good idea, Jennifer. All right, sorry, Lainey, go ahead.
No. So, well, let's talk about Mary Adkins' Palm Beach. So this one is August 3rd. We have a little bit to get library reads votes in. In the comments, I want to see if you guys love, is that a good thing that it gave? Yes, Kim, it's a good thing that it gave me chill, but like it was really a good, just perfectly put together. So I meant that in a positive way. So I want to hear if you have read Mary before, if you read When You Read This, which was so amazing. That was her debut. And it was all told in these letters and like pizza order forms and emails. That was an amazing book. And then she had Privilege right after. That one was amazing. And she's talks about them both on the podcast. So you guys can do deep dives if you haven't read them before. But this is her third book, Palm Beach. And I love this cover. It's something a little different for Mary. So yeah, Kim loved When You Read This. It's a really, really great book. And I encourage you guys to go back and read that too, as well as Palm Beach. But in this one, so we have a couple, they live in Queens, and they live in Queens in their tiny little apartment, Rebecca and Nikki. And Rebecca's kind of this freelance journalist, and her beat is really like corruption and this like structure of wealth, economic inequality. And her husband was an actor, and now they just had a baby, and they're looking to kind of get out of the city. And so they moved to Palm Beach after Mickey gets this job working for a multimillionaire Democratic donor. And he is kind of like the house manager. He kind of gets things done. And so they moved to Palm Beach. They're immediately saddled with way more space than they ever had in Queens and more money. And so they have to kind of figure out what they're going to do with this life. But then automatically, Mickey gets an offer from someone who lives down the street from where he's working, this like even more multi-billionaire. And he wants him to come for a better price to come run his house. And so, Rebecca has a few qualms about it. She's like, you're going to leave that quickly. Also, like, why is it so good? What are you going to have to do? And he is very adamant about like, more money, let's go. And so as he starts working for this new household, Rebecca's trying to figure out how her journalism career is going to take off in this smaller town. And so she goes to visit him at this house once, and the wife of the man he works for, I guess he works for her too, but the wife, she wants to write a memoir. And so she wants to hire Rebecca to be a ghostwriter. And so really surprises even Rebecca to take this job, because it's not really what she usually does. And it kind of goes against a lot of her morals. And she takes it. And so now they're both kind of thrust into this house along with their baby. She brings the baby too. And the people are all working around them. And they also have some kind of class structure, because Rebecca's taken care of a little bit more, and while Mickey's at work. And so that's really interesting. And they have to really fight a lot of those feelings and moral responsibilities that they feel. Like, where does making money end and leaving your morals at the door begin? So like I said, Mary really lives in that zone of like privilege, especially between like women and men, and between wealth, identity. And so she does that really well in her other two books, and in this one it's kind of the same. That's her sweet spot, and she writes about it so well. And we just love Mary. She's really genuinely just such a nice person, and we love having her at all of our conferences and stuff. But it helps when they write really great books. And there's really two really great quotes that came in. So Jessica Anya Blau, who wrote Mary Jane, I know you guys here really love that book, and says, Mary Atkins' Palm Beach is a rare page turner that gives you all the fun and decadence of a beach read while exploring the relevant issues around wealth and inequity. I opened it up and could not stop reading. And then Ruthie Thorpe, author of The Knockout Queen, said, a look inside the world of the ultra-rich, Palm Beach offers up moral complexity, page-turning, plotting, and deep insight into motherhood and family. Delicious, addictive, whip smart, and full of heart. And Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there because I can keep going on, but we love Mary and this book. She did it again. I it's just a treat to read her books. So I hope you take it upon yourself to have a treat this summer.
Excellent. And I think we just have one more book before we dive into Day of Dialogue. This is another June title that I've spoken about before. I have a podcast interview, so I'm being a little self-serving, but I'm also serving you all because the book is great. And that is Imposter Syndrome by Kathy Wang. See if I can pull up a jacket here.
Here you go.
Oh, thank you. All right, yeah. So Imposter Syndrome. Any of you watch Killing Eve? I think that's a great kind of setup for this, or The Americans, like good spy stories. That's what you get with this. It's kind of like an insider view of the tech industry, a cat and mouse chase between a powerful tech executive who's actually a Russian spy, and then like this low-level employee who discovers, the truth behind this woman's identity. And it's funny, but also pretty pacey. So basically you're following three viewpoints in this. You're following Julia Lerner, who is the really successful COO of this major tech company in Silicon Valley. She's just like kind of skyrocketed to the top. She's like basically a celebrity. She's doing talk shows. She's talking about being a mother and a woman in, the executive suite of these tech companies. You have Alice, who is the low-level employee. She's a first-generation Chinese American who is kind of like down on herself. She doesn't have much going on, just kind of like, getting through things. But again, she kind of like stumbles upon this blip in the system that points towards Julia using the company's interface to kind of pull information on sensitive subjects she shouldn't be looking at. And then you also follow Julia's handler, who's one of my favorite characters. So he's this Russian handler who's kind of trying to keep her in line as Julia's really getting into her career. She hasn't been in Russia for, over a decade. And she really likes the life she found here in America. And this handler is trying to remind her that, you're serving Mother Russia, you need to be passing along these secrets. Yeah, some people might die because of this, but that's the goal all along. It's like the Americans are doing the same thing. He's not like this dark caricature of a Russian, bad guy. He's like this fully, formed character. And I just love the interplay between Julia and her handler. It's really good. But yeah, the writing is just really smooth and smart. The dialogue, and again, I think just that Julia kind of becoming aware that someone knows that she's up to no good, and then Alice being terrified because she didn't really want to get involved with this. She kind of stumbled upon it. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It is kind of like Killing Eve, where your time's scared, but you enjoy every bit of it. And I did, like I mentioned, I interviewed Kathy, so that's definitely worth a listen. Jennifer Winberry says, I love how Imposter Syndrome is so different from Family Trust, which was Kathy's debut, but oh my, how good they both are. Thank you for adding that. Andrew Sean Greer, who was the winning mayor of the 2018 Pulitzer Prize, praised like Family Trust as a globe-trotting whirlwind tragicomic family saga. And whirlwind tragicomic definitely applies for this book as well. I would say, like, it's a great book club pick. It is relevant as ever, just with international affairs the way they are. And Kathy is a tech insider. She's worked in the tech industry, and I think for those of us outside looking in, we're always kind of, we hear the stories about the culture of the tech industry, but it's hard to know, the scope of it and how ridiculous it can really be. Without having that insider view, which Kathy really brings us along for in this book. It's a lot of fun. So this is going on sale May 25th. So that's Imposter Syndrome. And that's it for our title presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about our authors now that we have at Day of Dialogue. So you'll get a sneak peek and you can know what to expect. Again, Day of Dialogue is coming up here on May 6th. It's an all-day event. If you haven't registered, you still can. Thank you, Lainey, for providing the link.
It's free to
Uh,
register, so I hope you guys do.
Good, yeah, great point. And yeah, there's some huge names both from HarperCollins and others on these panels. There's a lot to see. So I'll go ahead and just like share our booth, and then we can talk about kind of what's going on. Let's see here. All right. So this is the HarperCollins booth. Do come say hello. We'll be in the booth pretty much all day because, I mean, look at the lineup. Let's see. So, Lainey, if you want to head things off, because we have author booth chats, which you can come to our booth. The authors will be on video, and then you can chat with them, ask your questions, and they'll answer. So we have 3 author booth chats.
I mean, you may have heard of this author, you may not have. Karen Slaughter is gonna head us off at 11 a.m. We're very excited. That one just came together. We confirmed it, and we were all really excited to get Karen. So this is a standalone false witness, and it is out in uno momento, July. So this is about a lawyer who gets a case that maybe it wasn't a coincidence that she got put on this case. She has some secrets from her childhood. So we love Karen, and I'm sure it'll be a great way to start off the author chats that day.
They just got a book list started review in an upcoming issue. I'm not surprised. I think what they really praise and what I always love about Karen's writing is the interpersonal relationships between siblings, between sisters. Her characterizations are just always so on point, along with just, you know, her twists and turns and, you know, the hard subject matter she tackles. And she in person is so funny and so supportive of the library. So that's going to be really cool. I think we're really happy to hear about that. So next we will be for our author booth chats, we have James Hahn Matson, author of Reprieve, which is a big book for us coming in October. He's the author of The Lost Prayers of Ricky Graves. This is his first book with us, and it's a social horror novel that takes place in there's different storylines, viewpoints, but it's all centered around this full contact haunted house in Lincoln, Nebraska. And it's kind of infamous. The guy who made it is kind of this strange personality. He's really well known, but he's also kind of reclusive. No one really knows what his deal is. And the full contact haunted house is set up with like a series of rooms. Again, they can do whatever, they can touch you, they can push you, they can shock you. But if you get through all of the rooms without saying, you know, the safe word, which is reprieve, you win a bunch of money. But only one group has ever actually successfully done that. So you're following the lives of basically 4 contestants who just happen to converge and take it upon themselves to get through this house. And they're all coming from very different backgrounds. You have a young Black woman, Kendra, who is not from Nebraska. She recently moved there, and she just feels very much like an other in this kind of, you know, country town city. But she gets a job at the haunted house and is kind of like learning to make friends, but she's also learning more and more about this house and that it might not be everything that it appears. And then you have a cousin of hers. You have a student from I believe, I'm sorry, let me double check this. He's an international student, JD, who's gay, and he's coming to terms with his sexuality. And again, he's going to college, and he's not from a place where he could admit openly his sexuality. And then he's kind of thrust into an environment that also at this point, it's 1997, people still aren't fully there as far as being open and accepting. And he's trying to figure himself out. And then you also get the viewpoint of this guy. He's kind of like an older guy who's a hotel manager. And he basically falls under the influence of these really toxic political social websites where it's like, you know, the dominance of man and things like that. So you kind of see his character unravel, and they all converge in this haunted house where something happens. And then you're also getting the viewpoint of like, there's this horrible crime that occurs in the haunted house. And now you kind of are like looking back at everything that led up to it and how these characters converge and what their roles are. You don't know who's killed and you don't know who committed the crime. You just know that every character whose viewpoint you're following is involved in the story. So it is scary, but it is also just a very poignant critique of, politics, of sexuality, of race. It does a lot, and it's really, really good and scary at the same time. So I'm really excited to meet James. He sounds wonderful. So we'll be talking from 1 to 1:20, 1:30-ish in our booth. And then our last in-booth chat is going to be Honoré Fanon Jeffers, the author of the love songs of W.E.B. Du Bois, which is going to be amazing. This book is so ambitious and huge. She's already an award-winning playwright and poet and essayist. So I'm, again, really excited to meet her. But this is her debut fiction, and it's a story about a family. And it's also a story about America, I guess. It's all told primarily through the viewpoint of this young woman whose family, she's a Black girl, and she has this kind of really long, successful family lineage, but it's very fraught, and depending on which side of the family she's looking at. She's the daughter of a doctor and a school teacher. She has a grandmother who's very much about the lightness of skin being a very important part of one's life. But she also knows that this family is not talking about everything about their history, whether it's their relationship with slavery, with coming over from Africa. Just like their history is tied to the history of America, but yet not everyone's talking about the reality of all of this. So she goes in and dives into her family's story and really discovers things that are enlightening, shocking, but it's a journey of self-discovery nonetheless. But it really does take place from like early settlers to modern day. Like it's really beautiful, and just, yeah, and ambitious. I loved it. So for fans of The Water Dancer, The Turner House, or Homegoing, I'm really excited to be able to see Honoré join us, talk about the book a little bit, and chat with you all. So we hopefully will see you there. That's from 3 to 3:20, 3:30-ish. So that is our in-booth chats. And then we have panelists. I don't know if you all have seen the panels for Library Journal's Day of Dialogue. It's out of control how good it is. So I guess we'll just kind of like talk you through what we have going on, what our authors are doing, and go from there. Sound good? Sound off, let me know, but I think that's what we're going to do either way. So the first panels, there's concurrent panels throughout the day. So to start things off, there's a literary fiction here in a broad panel. Our author is Bernard Schlink, author of Olga, which is a really fascinating historical epic, tracing the life of one kind of unique woman through 3 different viewpoints. So this takes place in this Prussian village in the early 20th century. And Olga is this really like smart, kind of precocious woman who doesn't come from money. And this is such a hierarchical, I can never say that word. Lainey, help me out. Just say it for me, because I can't.
Like now I can't say it. Hierarchical.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. Well, apparently there's a curse on that word today.
Yeah, I jinxed us. But basically, this Prussian society is all about what the family you're born into, and rarely, especially if you're a woman, do you transcend the life that you're born into. But Olga is someone who doesn't accept that. She doesn't take that for herself, and she works really hard. She falls in love with the son of a local aristocrat. She becomes a teacher. And her life unfolds across some of the major events of the late 19th century and early 20th century. So you're getting her life from 3 viewpoints, kind of like a separated, just more cold reading of her life, and then you get her viewpoint and then the viewpoint of a young man who she really, really influenced. So this is going to be very, very cool. Also on that panel, Uwen Akpan, Lauren Groff, Amor Tolles, and Margaret Verbal. So, and that's going to be one heck of a panel. So that is from 9:30 to 10:10. So definitely come check that out. So yeah, panel 1.
Yeah. The next one is History and Culture with Matthew Pearl. And so this book, The Taking of Jemima Boone, true story of the kidnap and rescue that shaped America. This is a narrative nonfiction from Matthew Pearl, who wrote the acclaimed novel, The Dante Club. And this explores this little known history of this true story of the kidnapping of Daniel Boone's daughter and like the aftermath that just kind of went throughout the whole country. And I love a good, I love good true crime, but I also love a good historical narrative nonfiction that can teach you something new. And Matthew's the perfect person to do it. And so this one is at 10 to 10:15 and 10:55. And let me see if I can pull up that's when I should have had the list up for you guys. But this is going to be a really amazing panel as well. And that's history and culture.
Let's see. Okay. Next, Wiley Cash, who's going to be on the literary fiction crossing boundaries panel from 12:15 to 12:55, which is a huge deal. We love Wiley Cash. I know you all love Wiley Cash as well. He's an incredible author in person, and we're always thrilled by a publication from him. He's not a book a year type of person. He takes a little time, but since his previous book was The Last Ballad, which I adored, it was a library reads pick. He also wrote A Land More Kind Than Home and This Dark Road to Mercy. And he's just an incredible Southern literary writer who covers a lot of interesting topics, but in a very propulsive way at the same time. So this is kind of part mystery, part, I guess that's a mix of mystery and literary, which really is kind of what it is. It's literary, it's a mystery about this plane that crash lands in North Carolina near the coast. And there's no one in the plane, but a dead body is found later near the plane. And you're basically following the sheriff who's taking it upon himself to kind of figure out who this man is, what caused this crash, and what's really going on behind the scenes in this town. There's racial tensions involved in the South. There's just like a lot of interesting side characters who are converging because of this mysterious event. And it's beautiful. I mean, I still remember reading The Last Ballad, just being struck by the strength of his writing, his characterization. He's just so talented. And I see a lot of fans also on the comments. Thank you, Wendy Bartlett, for the Mr. compliment. I don't know if it's going to catch on or not, but we're giving it a shot. But yeah, he's so good. There's a lot of quotes already in for this. Lou Berney, who we adore, author of November Road, says, "When Ghosts Come Home is a gripping mystery, as complex and layered as the characters who inhabit it." Set in 1984, Wiley Cash's exploration of race, justice, and grief, of the fault lines that rip apart families and communities, could not be more timely. Thank you, Lou. Said it best. So yeah, and other you're going to come for Wiley Cash. He's incredible. I don't think I need to say more than that. But let's see, Mona Awad, author of All's Well, Omar El Akkad, What Strange Paradise, Gregory. Oh, and we'll get to Gregory Maguire as well. He's also on that panel, our author. And then R. Kikwo Johnson. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. And that's going to be author, who's our moderator for that wonderful panel. I hope she's watching. I saw you comment earlier. The one and only Lillian Dabney, who incredible reader, thinker, and I'm sure interviewer. That's going to be a really awesome panel. So we're looking forward to that. And thank you for doing that, Lillian. Can't wait to see you as well. So that's, 12:15, 12:55.
Yeah. So on that panel, the literary, what did you say? Mystery? The literary fiction crossing boundaries panel. We also have Gregory Maguire, who wrote Wicked and that trilogy. And this actually 10 years to the season that this new book, The Brides of Maricourt, comes out. So it's coming in October and fall 2021. 10 years ago in the fall, he wrapped up his 3-book series that, was spun off The Wizard of Oz. And so he began Wicked 25 years ago. So we're going to kind of continue in this world a little. So this is a start of the first in the 3-book spin-off series from Wicked. And it features Alphaba's granddaughter, Rain, as she kind of washes on the shore of this unknown island. And we get to kind of explore through her eyes So it's a familiar world that we all like to go live in, and he's going to continue it, and it's going to be so beautiful. I know Lillian can probably already speak for it and say, well, I know she can, that it's really wonderful. So please come check out that panel. That's just like an amazing panel, and we're happy to have two amazing authors on it.
Okay, so our next panelist is going to be Tabitha Lastly, author of Sea State, in the Memoir Matters panel, which is running concurrently, but you'll be able, depending on which one you're watching, you can watch the replay of the other, vice versa. So this is 12:15 to 12:55 as well. And this is basically, it's her memoir that started with Tabitha taking on this job where she basically figured she was going to insert herself into male-dominated communities, in particular the kind of off-sea oil rig communities and the men who work on them, and those kind of like micro communities that form. And like in this case, it's mostly in the UK and Aberdeen and other locales. But what began as like an exploration of masculinity, toxic masculinity, what it means when, you know, these shore oil rigs are one of the few kind of like really well-paying blue-collar jobs left, and obviously the world is quickly shifting, and whether it's energy, jobs, automation, you know, all these things that are kind of causing tension and really kind of highlighting some of the issues that already existed within these communities. But what happens basically is Tabitha loses herself to the story. She begins an affair with a married rig worker, and that goes on for some time. And she's, you know, just kind of growing more reckless and lost, and kind of, you know, this is her story of how she went in, how she got through, and what she learned from it. The writing is really beautiful and poetic. She just has such a beautiful voice to the book, and being able to look back and kind of see it with clear eyes, you know, how she, you know, lost herself to the story. It's really something special. And there's some great reviews. This is from the London Review of Books, but I think it says it well. Lastly has a skill of a Joan Didion. Lastly has a skill, a Joan Didion kind of skill of inflecting nonfiction material subjectively, a habit of assessing situations via her nervous system. Sea State has all the presentness of fiction, as well as the exactitude of the nonfiction novel and the gleam of confession. Lastly conjures an industry and a place, but much more than that, she shows us the men themselves and the relation to her, a mysterious tale of love and fear. A mysterious tale of love and fear. I think that's pretty good. So yeah, I'm really excited to see her speak. This book isn't coming until December, but the galleys are available, and I'm really excited about this panel and to see her speak. So that's that.
Yeah. So mystery. Wanda and Morris, all her little secrets. If you've not heard us talk about this book, you will hear us talk about this book. This is our lead read for the season. And this is her debut. Can't believe it's a debut. It's such an action-packed suspense, but also it has so much more underneath, about a woman who is kind of middle-aged, 40s-ish, and she's a corporate lawyer in Atlanta, and she has kind of it all, an Ivy League education. She got out of this really horrid past when she was younger in a small town in Georgia. She got out of that. She's working for this company, and she kind of has a brother who gets into a lot of trouble, but that's really the only thing kind of on her plate now, keeping some secrets from their past. But she also has a little side relationship with her married boss, her married white boss. And one day she goes in for a meeting and he is dead. And so now, instead of choosing to call the police, she runs. She leaves the scene because she knows she has secrets that she doesn't want to come up from the past, and she knows that they'll look into it, even though she didn't have anything to do with this. And so slowly the police start to kind of figure out who was in his office, who was coming and going. So they're kind of looking at her. She's trying to continuously suppress all of these things coming from the past back up. You get these really great scenes between the present and the past, and they're really, really beautiful. And I think it's hard to do that well, to kind of go, especially in mystery, to go back and forth. But Wanda does it so well, and you just feel for these characters who've been through such hard things. But then she also is promoted to be not only the only black woman in a high position at this company, but she's pushed into this new position, her boss's old position. And so that makes her look even more guilty to people. And she starts realizing that there's a lot going on, and they're not as there's some weird things happening in this boardroom, and she thinks she might have only gotten moved up because she is the only black woman with that can move up. And so she starts uncovering some company secrets. So she's got a lot coming at her from a lot of different places, and it is just a thrill, and there's some good twists, and we're very, very excited about this book. So be sure to stop by and hear Wanda speak on at 3:30 on the mystery panel.
And we had the opportunity to talk with Wanda last week, I believe it was. That was the first time I had met her. She is a shining light. I mean, this book is thrilling, and it does deal with some weighty topics, but she is also she herself is like an amazing person. So I'm really excited to see her speak. I mean, she's just so energetic and passionate and genuine. She is a rising star. So definitely check that out.
And then last but not least, World War II fiction, Sisters in Arms by Kaya Alderson. So this is a really unique story. We have a lot of World War II fiction, but this one, it's a debut novel from Kaya, and this is this untold story of the 688, which is the all-Black battalion of the Women's Army Corps, and they kind of were part of the male system. So they would bring, it's the 8,888 Central Postal Directory Battalion. Say that 10 times fast. And they go over to Europe to deliver mail to all these people who are fighting over there. And so it's really dangerous. And they have to kind of come into this new level playing field, all these women from very different backgrounds. And they are really treated pretty badly within their group, and they kind of defy all odds. And it's really cool. She did a lot of historical research, and she used a lot of libraries. So she went and got to touch uniforms in person. The librarians were just so happy that this story that no one knows about was being told, that they were just like, give her all the access, like anything she needs, any old records. And so she really put a lot of research into this. And we're really hoping what this does is bring to light all of these, maybe we'll have an onslaught of all of these stories of women that are not being told. And I hope this is one of the first of many. We're excited. So Sisters in Arms, Kaya Alderson.
So that's our day of dialogue. We'll also be in the booth all day to chat. If you have time, again, I know there's a lot to see and a lot to do, but we'll be there all day. So please do come say hello to our authors. Ishi asked the name of this book, Sisters in Arms. So do check that out. I'll type it in the chat as well. But if you have any questions about how to register, what's happening, if you're looking for a good pasta recipe, whatever, just let us know. We're here for you. And it's been great to get back. We'll be back next week. I think we'll let you know date and time on that. But of course, we hope to see you on Thursday for Day of Dialogue. And yeah, thanks for joining us today. Anything else? Oh, yes, we do have one very important announcement. I'll let Lainey take that.
I might have seen somebody in the comments. Hope they're still here. Tomorrow, we're doing our second librarian takeover on Instagram. Jennifer Winberry was so wonderful to do it. The first time she kicked it off, and now we're having Greg Windsor from Johnson County Library. He's going to take over tomorrow from 2 to 4 Eastern on our Instagram account, and you can learn about the library. And he has something fun up his sleeve. So please join us. So that's Harper Library on Instagram from 2 to 4 on April 30th, tomorrow, and see posts from Greg and come say hi. That'll be fun.
Excellent. And Kim McGee, if you're asking about the interviews for Day of Dialogue, am I reading that right? They will be available for replay if you've registered. So yeah, that should work. Let us know if that's not answering your question. But yeah, all the panels will be available for replay on demand.
I put a list of the books we talked about in an Edelweiss collection for you guys, so it's in there. You guys can go ahead and dip into some galleys before Day of Dialogue comes, and let us know if you have any questions or have any trouble getting that.
Yeah, excellent. Well, everyone, thank you again for joining us. It does so much good for us to see you, and I hope you seeing us as well. But yeah, we love seeing you all here. We hope you all are safe and healthy and happy, and we hope to again see you, as many of you as possible, next week. Thanks again for joining us. We've missed you all, so it's good to be back. Thanks for joining us, and happy Thursday. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.